Wrestlers, I'm Miley, your ASGWC Vice President of Student Advocacy, and in this video, I'm going to get into, you guessed it, Prop 16. No, I'm not an expert on affirmative action, but I wanted to condense what I've learned about it into this video to help you expand your thoughts on it and give you a feel of what to consider when voting on this measure. I'll go into both sides of the argument, but I want to encourage you to form your own opinion on this matter. Let's jump right in! First off, what is Prop 16? Prop 16
is a constitutional amendment that would repeal Prop 209 passed in 1996 from the California Constitution. Without Proposition 209, state government, local governments, public universities, and other political subdivisions and public entities would, within the limits of federal law, be allowed to develop and use affirmative action programs that grant preferences based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, and national origin in public employment, education, and public contracting.
In short, Prop 16 would permit affirmative action. By definition of Merriam-Webster, affirmative action is an active effort to improve the employment or educational opportunities of members of minority groups and women. Some may view it as giving minorities a head start in a foot race. Oh, and there are no confirmed direct fiscal impacts related to Prop 16. Let's head over to 1996, shall we? On the 1996 ballot, 54.55% of California voters voted yes on Prop 209, and as it was mentioned earlier, it banned preferential treatment on the basis of sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin when it came to public employment, education, and contracting. Washington State followed suit in their Initiative 200. Since the late 20th century, affirmative action has been a hot topic in the courts. In 1964, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, which prohibited discrimination based on sex,
race, color, religion, or national origin.
However, for a handful of Americans, the ban on discrimination wasn't enough. Soon, colleges began to adopt affirmative action policies to increase enrollment of minority students. Since then, there have been many debates and court cases addressing whether or not affirmative action violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act. In the 1978 case of Regents of the University of California v. Bakke, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the goal of affirmative action was to promote diversity rather than compensating for historical injustices. However, as demonstrated in this article by Kimberly Reyes from The Atlantic, there are still those who think it should be about reparations rather than diversity. Since then, there have been numerous federal court cases, the most recent one being Students of Fair Admissions v. Harvard in 2019. Now for the common arguments. The initial sentiment behind affirmative action is to give special access to opportunities to groups that have been historically oppressed and discriminated against, as it was used by President John F. Kennedy in his Executive Order 10925. Although Americans are typically in support of equality of opportunity, the government intervening in equality of outcomes is what throws them off. Proposition 209 was passed in a relatively conservative era for California, but in light of the recent waves of activism for social injustice, the support for affirmative action is expected to be greater than it was 24 years ago. However, there is still strong opposition. Opponents of Prop 16 may argue that discrimination in the name of diversity is wrong. It's argued that the implementation of affirmative action would allow better qualified candidates to be looked over. In a 2015 debate organized by Intelligence Squared, Roger Clegg, the president and general counsel of the Center for Equal Opportunity, stated that allowing racial preference in college admissions would set a disturbing legal, moral, and political precedent. On the other hand, Deborah Archer, a New York Law School professor and director of the Racial Justice Project, prizes affirmative action for offering a pathway to opportunity for generations of students of color, and for its contribution in diversifying America. Opponents of Prop 16 may argue that students admitted through preferential treatment, like through race or because of their athletic ability or connection to alumni, will be less academically prepared and may suffer academically. This is known as the mismatch effect. However, this idea is often invalidated by supporters of affirmative action, one being Matthew M. Chingos from the Brookings Institute and Urban Institute, who claims that it isn't backed by high-quality evidence. Chingos even makes the argument that well-prepared students undermatch, meaning that they attend schools that they are overqualified for. Mentioned in a Pasadena Star News article, an affirmative action opponent states that Prop 16 wouldn't do anything to address the root causes behind disparities and achievement gaps in education. Victoria Dominguez, the Education Equity Director at Asian Americans Advancing Justice, mentions that affirmative action would mean taking a holistic approach to the admissions process. Dominguez reminds her audience that affirmative action would not use racial quotas. Another main argument for affirmative action is that it would promote diversity and diversity of thought. University of Southern California law professor Erwin Chemerinsky mentioned that in his 16 years of teaching law, conversations were vastly different based on the number of minority students present. A common rebuttal to this is that preferential treatment based on race stereotypes individuals and would generalize them to have different perspectives because they are a different color. What role should race play when it comes to college admissions? This is a question that has been debated, brought to the Supreme Court numerous times, and now is in your hands to choose for this year's general election ballot. The arguments brought up in this video are only the beginning of this debate. As mentioned in the beginning, the Student Interest Committee wants to encourage you to further your research into the subject and vote. Thanks for watching!